Yeah, there we go. So that's kind of the end of the main episode, and we can, if you don't mind, we could keep going a little longer. I don't want to take too much of your time, but I put out things on YouTube, and then I also have a paywall. Have you ever heard of Patreon before?
Yes, yeah, I know what
Okay.
you mean. Yeah,
Okay, so if you don't mind, we can just have a quick break. Okay, welcome back. Welcome back. This is my animal. I don't know. Do you have any pet? Or here, let me show you mine first.
yeah.
This is a Canadian Sphinx cat.
Good God, the Canadian Sphinx, is that really
Yeah,
a Canadian cat?
yeah, it's completely hairless. Apparently, it
It certainly
originated
is.
in Canada. I don't know how, but yeah,
It
this is my
seems
this is
fair to
the
have a hairless cat in Canada. To be
yeah.
fair, that doesn't seem practical. Bless.
Yeah, yeah. I guess not. But
Yeah,
if they stay inside all the time, then who cares? You know. Do you have any pets?
yeah. Fair. No, no, I don't. Again, that's part of my pare my life down to that absolute minimum of responsibility.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I could. I had a dog for a bit years ago.
Let me guess. A woman stole it.
That's exactly right. Yeah,
Yep, I fucking knew it. I had the
pretty
same
much.
thing. Sorry, I had the same thing happen to me. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. But there we go. There we go. Yeah, a little bit
More
like that.
misogyny.
But yeah, well, hey, they're dog thieves. I've always said that. We're behind the Patreon paywall now, aren't we?
Exactly. Now
Yeah,
we can open up about women.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I take back everything I said. There are no good
Yeah.
female stand-up. They all steal dogs.
You know what's cool. What's cool about my comedy area is I actually have a couple of little lucky keys where I can joke about some things that some other guys might not be able to. I feel like they're misogyny and like homosexuality, because what I was saying before is I my mom is gay. So I was raised by two women my whole life. So
Right.
I definitely go a little bit hard in the paint with a lot of gay jokes and misogyny jokes. Sort of those are my two bread and butter areas, sort of, because I can get away with it because I was raised by two women. Everybody knows I put women on a pedestal a little bit. I feel like sometimes. Do you ever have a phase in life where you did that?
Where I put women on a pedestal. I don't know. I mean, I'm going to say no, just because it seems like the right thing to say. I don't know. No, I think look, I think they're fine people. I think they're some of the best of us, and I say, hey, let's have some more. Why not?
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah. No, I think
The birds.
I think 100%. If I'm in a relationship with someone or something, I like to think anyway that a lot of my energy goes there because that's what I want to do. Which, seems like a compromise at the moment in my life,
Yeah.
which they don't like. Comedy has got to be the single worst thing in
have in
terms
a
of being
relationship.
a relationship.
100%.
I'm going to blame comedy and not my own behaviour.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I feel like I went through phases with my relationships with women for sure. Early on, I definitely put too much energy into managing my relationships, and now I'm kind of maybe not enough. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Whatever I've got a very limited amount of what's left of me at the
Yeah.
moment after dealing with everything else and trying to do the things that I'm trying to do. So yeah, I feel like I'm
Strangely,
great,
sometimes it's like the less attention that you give to it, the more attention you seem to get in return. It's kind of like somehow reversed. I find I can't believe that ends up being how it's happening. But it's like if you give too much to women, they like oh, this guy is too easy, and if you give less, it's like they kind of come for it. You know what I'm saying?
I've heard that theory,
Yeah.
and I'm sure there's something to it.
Yeah. So
But yeah,
So did you play any sports growing up, or because you're in great shape, it would seem. So like,
that's very kind. I can't get past the fact you got a hairless cat and 3 lint rollers behind you.
and three what? Sorry, oh, lint rollers.
You've
Yeah,
got
this is
3
where
lint rollers up.
it's my
Is
shelves. I just store things
Yeah.
there. I know I should probably stage this set better, but
No, it's intriguing. You've got a DUI, a beer, and a Rubik's Cube. It's a little glimpse into something.
yeah.
Yeah.
I used to have a little piece of paper that was from one of my skits that I did that just said porn on it. That was my favorite thing for the shelf, and then it disappeared when we were cleaning at some point in the studio. my fucking producer, she just throws out stuff that I tell her, hey, clean the area, and she just starts throwing out all my valuables. I'm like, fuck.
Right. I'm
Right.
going to leave.
Yeah.
But hey, you seem to have an interesting relationship with the women in your life, and I say fair play to you. But yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Yes. What did you ask again? I forget. Sorry.
If you played any sports growing up?
Oh, that was it. Yeah. Yeah. Not brilliantly. No. I was never in like a sports team, which obviously makes sort of sense. I was. This is lame, but I used to be a competitive rock climber, very very briefly at a very poor level once
Oh,
upon a
wow.
time. I say that I did a few competitions, but yeah, that's before I started working at sea, so I had to give that up. So that's probably the
What's it
closest
like
to
to
being.
work on a cruise ship? That just sounds wild.
Yeah, it's kind of lawless, which
Yeah.
seems an odd to say, but because there's a million rules, obviously, but because literally do live on them for, in my case, 4 or 5 months at a time,
Wow.
and you're supposed to be at work every day that you're there as well. So you're always at work 10 hours a day, every day, doing something is the idea. But so what that creates really is a situation where you got a load of people trapped on a ship. It's sort of like a prison full of booze and women, basically.
Wow.
So every day
Paradise.
you wake like Monday morning, and then by the end of the day, it's always Saturday night. So it's all just drinking and just trying to distract yourself with all kinds of fun things. But every single morning you're getting up and going to work as
Yeah.
well.
Do people like act a lot differently when they're on a cruise versus when they're normal? I feel like people are in vacation mode. They must be.
Oh yeah, I mean the passengers and all of that. Yeah, I didn't have a huge amount to do with them, although they kind of make you, because I was an officer. Like they would make you sit and have dinner with the passengers and like go to cocktails with them and like that kind of thing, and like you're part of the entertainment almost as you walk in the uniform, being a sailor or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was sort of part of it. But yeah, they're all very much invested in the pomp and circumstance of it all. That was what the ships I worked on were like, because they were mostly British passengers and they were mostly older. So they liked all of the sort of maritime law and like the feeling of being very special and being important, because they were the one talking to the officer and they were the one invited to the party or the dinner or whatever.
Yeah.
Which is nice. I get that. That's fine. But like the crew, that's a different story. They're largely made up of people that I don't think can work on land anymore. Anyway, it does something to you. That's what I noticed about it. If you do it too long, you can't do anything else.
Too many DUIs, so they got to get off land, and now they can drive boats. Just I don't know if DUIs carry over onto boats.
There's definitely something to that. There's a lot of people with a lot of pasts on there. I'm sure of that, and not a lot of futures. Sometimes you think like this really is like the last ditch thing where no one's coming to get you, no one's kicking you off. I don't know what it's like these days. Like it used to be, I'm sure, a lot worse. But you're like some of these people. It's like you would not you couldn't get away with any of this in the normal world, but like there is no oversight, obviously, and you're on a ship and no one wants your job. That's the other thing. It's like it's so much easier for people to just leave you where you are doing whatever it is that you're doing than it is to do anything about it.
Yeah.
Wow. Anyway, there's some awesome people there though, and it was good. I did it for years, but you're right. You're always on the edge of being completely institutionalized one way or the other.
Yeah, I bet. That's crazy. Was there so rock climbing? Was there a rock climbing wall on the boat, or how big of a cruise ship are we talking here?
No, we didn't have any of that. My ship wasn't that big. I mean, when it was built, it was one of the biggest. It was called the it was a P&O ship, so it's P&O cruises in the UK, which is like part of Carnival and all of that. It's all the big ones, but yeah, they weren't like the crazy big ships that you see like the Royal Caribbean have or anything like that.
Gotcha.
80,000 tons, which is nothing. But yeah, there was all sorts. But yeah, we had no rock climbing walls or anything like that on my ones. It was all very old school.
Yeah. What about back in the UK? Is there many places to climb there? Like, how long did you rock climb for?
I mostly did it indoors, so I was mostly just doing like indoor climbing and bouldering and things like that.
Yep.
But it was just a thing in Bristol when I was younger. So I moved to Bristol when I was about 18 years old, and there was one climbing wall, I think, when I moved here. And now there's like 6. So like comedy, it expanded and got very popular all of a sudden.
Yeah. How many chin-ups can you do? How many chin-ups can you do?
Oh, back in the day, I could do proper ones. I did like 25, 30.
Holy shit.
When I was really good. That's not the case anymore. I'm
very
sure.
Impressive. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Cool, man.
But like, I was obsessive about it for a while. I was climbing hours and hours a day, most days of the week.
It's like meditation. Hey, yeah, I climb a lot as well. So you don't have much experience doing it outside. Hey, in Canada, we have lots of places that you can do it. Like outside real. The thing is that the meditation of it does get interrupted a lot by the fear, because when you do it on real stuff, it's very scary. Like I think we might have just figured out where you cultivated your non-fear of things, because rock climbing is one of the scariest things that is out there.
Oh no, I was petrified of it all. Yeah. I mean, I tried to do it in the safest, least dangerous ways possible. But I think I do like that aspect of being afraid of it, doing it anyway, and then managing to, achieve it in controlled environments where I feel control.
Rock climbing might be the only thing that's like above, let's say, shower. Like when you're in the shower, you have lots of good thoughts, I feel like, and then there's like rock climbing is the only thing maybe that's one step above that, where it's like when you're by yourself up on a wall, it's kind of like it's the best reflection ever. That's when you really, really think the thoughts that are pretty pure, right? I don't know, how do you feel about that?
But yeah, very much so. I think for me, any activity that forces you to focus solely on that activity because of the consequences of not focusing on it is really relaxing in a weird way. So climbing was it, definitely. Can't think about anything else. Don't want to. Everything's about a very specific achievement, and working on maybe one move for a week or whatever to get it.
Yep.
Comedy, get in front of people. I do a lot of improvised stuff, so I don't know where it's going. There's not a lot of safety net for me. It's all this underneath the surface. Got to make it work.
Yeah, climbing is a lot like comedy also. Climbing is a lot like comedy also, in the sense that you keep pushing to make these little achievements, but it's weird to see the end. It's weird to see the purpose of why you're really doing it in the same way with comedy, kind of. I feel like that's quite the similarity. Let's talk about this a little bit more, if we can, about why the heck you don't have a podcast. Let's dissect that a little bit, because I feel like you should start a podcast. And I think that, like, saying that you couldn't manage it yourself, I think is a little bit of a cop-out.
Yeah, it probably is, to be fair.
Are you afraid of burning material, or?
No, I wouldn't be afraid of that. I think it's probably something that I've thought about, a lot, and I've tried to envisage what it is that I'm offering in it, if you know what I mean, without it just being another podcast. So, I enjoy things like. I respect the skill that's involved in stuff like Tim Dillon's podcast or Bill Burr's one, where it is pretty much one person just monologuing.
Yeah.
Tim Dillon's one obviously has a performance aspect to his producer in the room. I think that's something I would need. I need to be impressing someone. You know what I mean?
Fair enough.
In order to know where
Very honest
to
of
go
you.
with the next thing. Um, but yeah, like I think it is something I would enjoy. I mean, one of the reasons I said yes when you offered to do this very kindly is to sort of. I just think it's good for me to. Now, this sounds horrible, but practice.
Yeah,
Being a guest on things, because that's very awkward for me.
for sure.
Is sort of the being like a guest aspect of it, or being
Yeah,
like in a dialogue with
yeah,
someone where I, you know, that's outside of my comfort zone, because I've spent so long just doing comedy all the time and just talking to people or at people
yeah,
essentially, and controlling the interaction and being the one everyone's looking at,
yeah.
taking on all that responsibility. It's very hard for me to give any of that away.
Yeah, well, that's
And
why
like,
I'm surprised where you say you don't know what you offer, because I feel like, when you watch, say, like a Joe Rogan Experience or something like that, but even the Bill Burr and the Tim Dillon one, like you said, maybe not Tim Dillon so much because he is very, very topical, and he really goes through all the stuff going on rather than just talking about himself. But I do think that, like, you are normally the center of attention when you're on stage, and I feel like what you have to offer, if you could just get past the not thinking that you yourself as a person have the value, like, because people do want you, what you're offering is yourself, which is a huge
mm,
thing, and you can't be underplayed. So don't feel like you have nothing to offer when it just comes to that, you know uh, if that makes
well,
sense.
that's very kind, man. Thank you for saying that. But
Yeah,
yeah, I think that's something I'm increasingly aware of. Is that that's why I like doing live stand up so much, is because if lots of people laugh in unison, it's very clear to me for a very small amount of time that I'm doing it right and I am offering the thing and they are getting something from me. And and obviously doing a podcast, all of that is a bit remote and a bit removed. But I think, again, in the right setting, with the right person, or with the right setup, yeah, it's 100% something I'd be happy to put out.
for sure.
But yeah,
Well, what's cool about it too is that it's got a little bit of that comedy aspect where you're doing things for others, and then but it also, you benefit from it a lot, like, because it really is, it's like a writing process. And when you do the monologue thing, like you said, because some days when I do the solo ones, the producer isn't there and stuff like that. And when you do a podcast and it's just by yourself, like that Bill Burr style, he always ends up talking about fucking sports and stuff, which is
mm,
fine. But I don't necessarily watch his a lot for that reason. But I find that it would be a lot like rock climbing, or a lot like, having a good game in hockey or something like that, where you get into a zone that isn't achievable in any other way if you're just trying to sit down and write. Like when you force yourself to speak and speak on the record, oh man, it changes the whole thing. It flips the whole script, and it's like, because like I have, oh my god, dozens and dozens of pages of stuff that I've written from the podcast, and you really can get the best clips out of it too. And then you don't require an audience. You can
mm,
make, then it takes out an element of something where you need other people to make what you want to make. Now you can make it on your own, and
yeah.
so that's a couple of the benefits that you personally could get out of it, or the comedian could get out of it. But yeah, I like, and that's just a couple more things about podcasting, if I could. Uh,
Yeah.
I truly do think that, because I'm a huge comedy fan myself. A lot of the same story as you, grew up watching it and loving it and stuff. I do feel that it is hard for stand up to compete with podcasting, because
Mm-hmm.
if you can put multiple, like, of course I try to get comedians on as much as I can. I try to get academics on, but they're boring. And I try to give them a stage to talk about their research and things like that and whatever. But the reality is that when you get two people or three people that you want to see talking all at the same time, how can one person on stage compete with that when they're doing recited jokes or things like that? Instead you could have three of your favorite thinkers talking all at the same time, bouncing ideas off of each other. It has an effect that amplifies it, I think, far beyond stand up in some ways.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I do see what you're saying. I think it stimulates a different part of the brain. So, I mean, I have podcasts on as background noise almost.
Yeah, what do you watch? What kind of podcasts do you watch? I'm very curious what some of your favorites are and things like that.
That's a very good question. What do
Aside
I
from
watch?
Canadian Talk, of course, which is your favorite.
Of course, yeah. I would say what do I listen to a lot of? Uh, I listen to a lot of history ones.
Yeah.
So we got ones like The Rest is History
Yeah.
in the UK. I like stuff like that because it's the most passive, least effort way of feeling like you're learning something or engaging with something that you don't know much about or something like that. And it's better to do the washing up whilst you're learning about Napoleon.
Getting
to me,
some cool
anyway.
facts.
Yeah,
learning about how we crushed Napoleon with half as many people as he had.
Indeed. Yeah. Nicely. No, it's nice. It's nice to hear about basically all of the times where we won, which needs to be historical, sadly, but that's fine. But yeah, no, So I listen to a lot of that. I've got into one recently called The Rest is Entertainment, which is the same thing but for like how the entertainment industry works. But yeah, I've gone through all sorts of things. I listened to a pub quiz podcast. I thought about doing that. I thought about doing a quiz-based podcast because I felt like, again, I need to add some extra value to it. So I thought I'd
fair enough. I understand that propensity to want to like, I've got to add a shtick to it. I've got to add a structure to it. And if I could pull a shred of your respect in the podcast area, I would pull it and just say this, that urge of thinking that you need to do that and narrow it isn't necessarily the most important part. Like, sure, it might make you pop if what you're looking to do is to pop and be a 15-minute fame type thing. I don't know if you've heard of the Hawk Tua girl. Have you heard of the Hawk Tua girl?
I'm aware of them. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she started a podcast called Talk Tua. And then another group of comedians started a podcast called Talking Talk Tua, and where they analyze her podcast. So like that would be like a niche thing, right? Like they're trying to pop off with that single idea of that. And that can be a thing. But ultimately, if you have a more general thing where it's like, no, this is me centered. This is what I'm thinking. This is not, you can still do quizzes. This episode, you have a quiz. This episode, you do that. There's no reason why each episode couldn't be different and things like that. I feel like if I learned anything from the decade plus that I've, used watching these things, it is, and it's mostly from Joe Rogan, which was my kind of my start in the whole realm, was you don't need to narrow yourself down. The power in it is the broadness, so that's how I feel about that, but you might be right too. The best thing for you might be to do a niche type thing, but you do have to figure out what you're after. That's for sure. But that's where you can have multiple. You can have yours, which is you, and then you can have your niche one also. And it is easier to make than you might think. Like I feel like, sorry, I'm not just going to lecture you here or
no, it's
anything.
Yeah.
What I'll just tell you is that in my experience, because I'm an engineer, so it might I might just think it's easy because I'm a good computer guy, but truly, it really isn't that hard setting one up and editing one. It's not like a comedy clip where you've got to edit it perfectly. You got to do cuts here and there and add subtitles and do all this stuff so it pops and has these beats. With the podcast, it really is just it's like Norm Macdonald, where in a sense you just kind of you put it out there, you edit in an intro, you maybe put an ad or two throughout it, and then you don't edit anything else, and it's easy. You can, for some episodes, if you have a good one, you can edit it in less than 5, 10, 15 minutes, and there you go. You know what I'm saying? And and then if you set it up right, like you already have a website, so you would just add a page to your website, and you upload the episode there, and it populates to all the other websites. Like you wouldn't have to go and, in case you didn't know this, you don't have to go and individually upload it to all the websites. If you have a website, you can set up what's called an RSS feed on your page on your website, and then all you go and do is you burn that feed, which is it's a special URL link, and you give it to Apple, you give it to Spotify and to Google Podcasts, and then automatically you just upload to your website and it's on everything. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot easier than you might think, is what I'm getting at. And I mean, God, you can get a camera off Amazon for $50. You know, there's nothing expensive about it, nothing like that. So just some food for thought for you.
No, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think,
Okay.
yeah, there's an inevitability to it. I
For sure.
think as well. You know,
For sure.
I think I just get myself set up for it, get in the habit of doing it, and yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of the dream as well, and it really is to have a successful podcast. It would help with everything.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, there's something about people who do comedy where they relentlessly have to tell you what they're thinking all the time. I just need to let that go, I suppose. But yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And thank you everybody out there for watching. Please go and subscribe to the Patreon if you haven't already. Canadian Talk on Patreon.com/Canadian Talk. We need more of you guys out there. It's cheap. It's $4 a month. I mean, come on, guys. So, and yeah, thank you, Greg, for coming on the show today. We got the stylish Greg with Lacoste wearing, comedy spitting Greg on, and yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. And that's it for today.